is working anyway. That's good. That's a plus.
You can sing that, can't you? How you doing?
Sure.
The party's over.
You gotta go home, but you can't stay here.
Still had it in me.
Mark, we have is there a certain time the public can comment?
I don't know.
Yeah, he's
Is there?
a headliner.
No, they said not.
No, then it'll just be at the end, you know,
His
At the
lights
end?
get
Yeah.
turned
Please
off
don't let
when
me
he
miss
takes him home.
before you vote, right, before you vote, and then,
Don't let me miss the time to give public comment. Okay.
Now it's turning red.
If you,
you don't.
We don't need to do pledge. Do we do pledge?
what the name is.
Not a requirement, it's up to your discretion.
Okay.
3 o'clock.
KT, you gonna join us?
Went to the bathroom.
Oh, did he? Left his phone, so you know
Carson? He's in the elections office.
Where?
He's in the elections office.
he knows he's not up for election, right? I wonder if he knows he's not up for election.
He
Maybe
left
not.
his phone over there. He's already left.
Oh, he's next door.
On the breaking room.
Usually
that
I'm
it,
talking to Brenda.
At the Silver Center.
Yeah, the others.
Jennifer.
Go, Tony, come on.
Do it. Y'all ready? We'll call this special meeting to order. As you all are well aware, we are here today to discuss and set the trim notice for Henry County. Thank you all for being here. It's a wonderful and awesome task that we've all been given to set the business funds that's going to drive this county forward and make sure that we are solid not only for today but for the years to come, and yet be responsible to the taxpayers that we were all elected to represent. So thank you all for being here and appreciate it.
Shane, can you go get Carson? The election office.
He's talking. Okay, do we have a presentation?
Don't want to vote without
Do you have something you want to go through, Ms. Davis?
We do. Charles, did you want to start out?
No, I really don't have anything else to say other than what the chairman led off with the preamble. This is a special meeting, and the sole purpose of this meeting is to request that the board officially set the not-to-exceed truth and millage rate for the trim notices. We need a decision today to make it by the deadline to make sure that the notices are included within the property appraiser's mailouts. Their vendor needs the decision by August 4th to be able to execute that. So the one and only action that we are asking from this board today is to give us a not-to-exceed millage rate so that we can post it within the truth and millage posting provided by statute.
Okay, awesome.
Okay. Well, I'll start out, and the focus today is the general fund because that's where your millage is. And on the next meeting, the next two meetings, you'll hear from the constitutionals specifically in more detail, and also the department heads. But we do have some constitutionals here today, and we will give them time to speak when we get done with this presentation. So for the 2017-2018 year that we're in right now, our millage, there's a few different percentages. I'm just going to explain them a little bit. It went up 3.8%, or $594,000 over the last year's adjusted number. So without getting into too much detail, just so you know, every year the prior year number adjusts during the year, value adjustment board, and then the property appraiser has in his discretion to make some changes. So that number changes every year. So this time next year, you know, that 1,910,000, you're going to say, wait, that's not the same number. It changes. So then it changes our percentages, just so you know. So with that said, 3.8% value increase from last year, or $594,000 of what was levied from last year. And we have a graph here from 04-05 into the number for 17-18, and you'll see a trend of steady going up for the last few years, which is very helpful. And so just to go over the proposed budget before you, we have it balanced at the current millage rate, 8.4909 mils, without a millage rate increase. Again, ad valorem revenue went up 3.8% from prior year. The current millage rate at 8.4909, the proposal is 2.76 higher than the rollback rate. So the reason those numbers are different is because you have new construction every year. So new construction is added to the tax roll. It's not carried over from the prior year, and then the adjustments I just talked to you about with the property appraiser. The new construction for this last year was a little over $19 million, just so you can see what's going on in the county. Our population number is 0.7% from prior year. Our state revenue increased $118,000 in the general fund over last year. And our 1-cent sales tax, which is in our 304 fund, our capital projects fund, it is up $286,000 over prior year. That number is right around $3 million. It's 2.9 and some change. Medicaid increased from prior year. However, in July of this year, last month, we made our last payment for our arrearage of Medicaid that we've been paying for 5 years. So on the line item, you're going to see a savings of $60,000 in the general fund, but that's why. So we're done paying the back taxes. And then for the Board of County Commissioners, the health insurance increased 3%. The Sheriff's Department, they have their own health policy with PRM, and theirs actually went up 8%. So we have that built in as well.
Jennifer,
Yes, sir.
what does 3% come to?
I don't have.
Dollar-wise?
I don't.
Yeah, dollar. Yeah, about.
I'll get that to you in just a
Okay.
minute. I have it somewhere scribbled on
And-
my paper. And then I can tell you that the Sheriff's Department at 8% is $136,000, and we have that built in as well, in addition to what we've already shown for the sheriff's budget. The liability increase was 5%, and that one was a little over $50,000. I have that.
Why did that increase? I thought we had it going down.
Liability, workman's comp this year.
Oh, okay.
There was a large increase. We actually showed a decrease in our property. There's different components of our renewal, and the property decreased, but the workman's comp increased for everyone, everywhere, and that was part of the increase. So the things that we addressed in this proposed budget to you is we balanced at the current millage rate. We included 3% COLAs for all Board of County Commissioner employees and constitutional employees. We have begun the process of upgrading, replacing the jail and courthouse. As far as the process, we have budgeted for your discussion a feasibility study as part of the proposal to move that forward. We have continued to upgrade our vehicle fleet, our ambulance. We're good on the ambulances. For the last few years, y'all have added an ambulance each year. So now we're going to be in a rotation where we don't have to keep increasing that after this year. And we have budgeted to replace 5 additional board vehicles in this next coming year. We are rebuilding our general fund unrestricted reserves, and we have a building maintenance schedule for property for the general fund and capital improvement fund before you to start working on much needed repairs and maintenance on all of our county facilities. So this is a summary of the capital projects that we have before you. In the email that I sent to you earlier, it's a little bit more detailed. We can talk about that if you so choose. But I just went through and summarized by facility. If you'd like, I can give you a real quick rundown if you would like to do that to have
Anyone need any
further
clarification?
discussion.
Just tell them which one is grants.
Okay, so the Dallas Townsend building, the $250,000 at the bottom of the schedule is 100% grant. The historic courthouse, the $500,000 is 100% grant. And the feasibility study, 60 of the $90,000 that we have budgeted for the courthouse jail and replacement is from other sources.
I don't see that. Where's that at?
Okay, so that's on,
Okay, it's not on there. Okay.
yeah, it's
Okay.
on here.
You need it. I got a copy of it.
I actually have a copy of it in my computer.
On this sheet.
Would you like to discuss these in more detail?
I'd like to, just a couple questions, Mr. Chairman. The 1 cent sales tax, it generated 3 point what this year?
2.9.
2.9.
Right.
So you just rounded up.
Yeah.
2.9, of which, what percentage did we actually use to help balance the budget this year versus
60%.
60% roughly? That's a lot better than 100% at 1 point something that we used to do all the time.
Yeah, so every year we've gotten a little better.
Yep. And at the current budget that you all have created, you're forecasting another 2.9. You're not looking at any increase, or and on the 2.9 that you have in there, does that take in, Jennifer, does that take in the $286,000 increase that you received?
Yes.
Okay.
That includes it.
So what y'all thought was actually it was going to be like 2.7 something. Yes, ma'am.
It's 2.9.
Okay, got you. And then after you rolled back into the 2.9, that's where you used an actual hard 60%, or was it from the 2.7?
It's from the 2.9.
Okay, outstanding. Do you have any forecast of what that will be next year? Do you think everything's looking like it's going to be increased again, correct?
Are you speaking simply the 1 cent?
Simply to the 1 cent sales tax. I mean, sales tax are up throughout the state.
I believe it will.
It'll be up or the same, I think.
Yeah, I think so. We haven't had any dip in that number is what I'm driving at.
Correct.
Since I think it was 03, 04, or 04, 05.
It's always went up just ever so slightly.
Yes, ma'am.
Or stayed flat.
Yep.
In the last few years.
Yep.
Last year, we had a nice little increase as well, I believe, and then this past year.
Okay.
We're getting that Walmart penny now.
Yep.
So the 60 each year, the game plan is to go down,
Yes, we need to
to work it back where it should be in capital.
reduce our dependency of the 1 cent and get it into capital,
Yeah,
correct?
doing everything in our power to make sure that that money is actually working towards infrastructure upgrades and being proactive in nature instead of, helping to balance the day operations. Yep. Okay.
So with the net at the bottom of this schedule, we have $650,000 that we're looking to do these priorities within our facilities. And last year, for example, we had $200,000. And I think you all know that over the last few years, we've maintained what we have, but we've got leaky roofs. I can tell you this past year, we have replaced so many air conditioning units. We have more to replace and to repair. So we've been doing everything we could just to keep the air going and everything going. We patched roofs rather than replaced roofs. But there's a lot of improvements that we need to be doing to our current facilities. And so this is an attempt to do that, to try to get everything going in the right direction so we're not spending more money in repairs than
Does
necessary.
parking lots come under capital, or you got them somewhere else?
The parking lots are under the courthouse, and we have $30,000 estimated for resealing and repaving the courthouse parking lot.
Repaving or just resealing?
Resealing and
Just
restriping,
resealing,
I'm
yeah.
sorry.
Right.
Okay, I talked to Charles today, and I think their number was 200,000.
Who's there?
I asked Steve Fort with engineering and Shane to give me an idea of what resurfacing the courthouse parking lot west and courthouse parking lot east sides would cost with a total new resurface that's not included in your proposal. Separate number is 127,000 is the breakout.
It'd be about 200,000 more than what's figured in.
Just to pave.
Yeah, because those parking lots, you can't reseal them. All it is gravel. So, they're going to have to be paved sooner or later. And every year you wait, they just get worse and worse and worse.
Well, that's going to go back to what we're talking about. I can speak to that from the other side of this, because for the past several years, we've been told, we'll get it next year, we'll get it next year. we got a roof that's been sitting there 12 years, been leaking for 12 years. And we haven't been able to get the funding for that. So this to me seems like an amazing opportunity to get us back to the level and quality that the taxpayers expect and deserve from the board. So I'm believing this year, hopefully, we're going to be able to meet some of these. The courthouse parking lot's a prime example. It's one of the worst parking lots in the county, and it's the county seat. People come here every day to do business, and it's the court system. So a lot of these things we're looking at in here, if you went into the in-depth study, what they did, they detailed it, broke it down to each individual department, what the needs were, where they were at. And I think it's going to be kind of interesting conversation here to get to where we need to be.
Okay.
Do you think we can get to that point for the funding for the parking lots?
Ultimately, it comes down to the action that you guys take today and how much money we have to play with moving forward. So I need direction from the board to say, are you okay at 8.4909? Because that's where we're at today with the balance, and then we can move some projects around based on the schedule to get to certain numbers. Or if we look at a reduction down from 8.4909, depending on what that number is, some of these things might have to be pulled off the table.
Well, okay, before we get there, Ms. Davis, do you have anything else?
The only thing I would add to that, talking about the courthouse, is, the engineering department is doing another STA to get an estimate of the facade, the brickwork that's falling down off of the building. And so we don't know what that number is today. We had $200,000 left over, basically, in this fund, and I've assigned it to that line item. I don't know if $200,000 is going to do it. And it was, I don't know, Shane, how long it's going to be before we get that study back, but it was also recommended to wait to do the parking lot until after that got done. So they're going to be bringing in a lot of heavy equipment and so forth for that project, and we don't want to damage the parking lot until that's done. So just as a thought.
But you're working on moving forward with that now.
Yes, I think that when we get that number and see what that looks like, we very well may have to come back before you and ask for another way to finance that project. We don't know. And then we could maybe roll in the parking lot.
Well, I think, like I says, put the money in place and then do it after they go around, because they're going to tear it up anyway as they go around.
Right.
And then as they get through, well, Shane can say, okay, y'all can go and pave. But if we don't do it now, it probably won't get done.
Well, yeah, we're end up in the same situation. Year to year, Band-Aids are coming off, and it's getting a much more costly process after the fact. If we could get it, get proactive instead of reactive,
Right.
it would get us in a better situation.
Mr. Chair.
Goodness gracious, Harris.
Chair.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Wills,
Yes, sir.
you were saying that there's a roof that's leaking. Are you referencing here or Clewiston? Where exactly are we
The
talking
health
about?
department in LaBelle.
Health Department in LaBelle.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
That's a roof that I put in several times myself in budgets that just kept getting pushed back, and we patched, and it's in pretty bad shape.
And what is the estimate to fix it?
The estimate on the paper sheet that we got was $70,000. And that was on part of one of the other forms there. Yes, sir. It's inside the,
Okay. It's on this one, Jennifer's now.
So that's, okay, so Health Department LaBelle, I saw that. That was,
Yes,
okay,
sir.
that's the roof. Okay. Okay.
Clewiston sub-office 100.
Well, I do everything in my power to stay away from talking to the constitutional officers about those day-to-day things. So I really don't think that's my gig. But I'd love to know what is that list that's out there. I mean, do we feel that this is extensive in nature and garners everything from A to Z in the county?
I bet it does not. This is a scratch of the surface to get started, because
Right.
the whole time I've been on the board, we've been with the nose above water, barely scraping, and definitely not talking about moving forward, but staying alive. This is the first time I've seen us even discuss being able to be proactive with anything. So I'm sure this is no way an A to Z list, but a good start on a list.
it will be both sides of the county. We do have issues, yes, sir, on both sides of the county.
And then one thing that I want to stress is, resealing. I don't pretend to be an expert as it relates to parking lots either. Resealing and restriping versus resurfacing is considerable difference in cost. I would respect Shane's opinion, and I would love to see what those numbers are at on hard costs and where we're going to get to. And then I want to see a couple of projects a year. I don't want to jump on a $750 to $1 million capital improvements thing that is completely, while we may call it proactive in nature, anything that we're fixing is not generating a revenue stream. And I understand it's to the constituents and the taxpayers, but I think that we need to be cognizant of the fact that Band-Aids, yes, they are just that, but I don't think that we have any jugulars that we're trying to put a Band-Aid on. I think that we have scratches that we're putting Band-Aids on. And I like Band-Aids with Neosporin instead of brand new, really nice, wonderful Cadillacs running around. I'm not asking that we put anybody in construction trailers. I was for that at one point. That's where I got my driver's license over in Clewiston, and it served its purpose for a long, long time. But I think that we have a nice, cozy facility now that's moving forward. And, I want us to look at trying to hammer out some of these things, but being cognizant of what we're talking about. One thing that really makes me uncomfortable was and I don't see it on this one, but it's a $90,000 towards a feasibility study for a new facility here. And I'm sure it's up there as well.
It's
But
part of the 480.
Okay.
Summarized, and just as a point of reference, this is the first year of the 3 years that we did. So I just, on this specific slide, I just did the year, what we had estimated to go into next year. But we did a 3-year list of needs. And the second and third year isn't quite as harsh as the first year. The second year was $443,000 in the third year. And of course, things can be added to it as needed, is $325,000.
Is that just for the jail or everything?
No, that's everything, all general fund and capital buildings. It is not recreation, it is not fire departments or anything like that.
Because I thought we was going to do the jail first.
These are mostly, and if I can, just give me just a few minutes.
Sure, go ahead.
For example, the $40,000 for the sheriff's department is a pump that is needed to pump water up to the 3rd floor that is not working.
Specifically, not just pump water, but it's a fire safety issue.
It's a
It's a
fire
fire
pump.
suppression sprinkler system that does not work, which
Yes.
is catastrophic. I don't know why that hasn't been addressed.
And so the courthouse, the 480,
Yes.
Carson has the 90,000 feasibility in there. It also has the 200,000 estimate that I was telling you for the brick facade.
Jennifer, I'm sorry, does the 480 have the 90 or 30? I thought we were only budgeting 30 in there for
It
that.
has, I have, the 60 is backed out in that 810.
Okay, I got you, okay.
And then we have courthouse interior repairs. There's a lot of work within the courthouse that needs to be worked on. We have 50,000 for that. And then we have the 30 for the parking lot, and we have 110,000, and Commissioner Wills can speak to that better than I can, for the AC equipment and chiller for the courthouse. And I know that the clerk had just told me before the meeting started that the air wasn't working in here, for example, the other day.
They had to work on the air in here this morning. Actually, the 2 units in here have been needed to be replaced for the past 7 years. Neosporin's amazing, but you've got to come to an end. And we haven't. We haven't come to an end, and it's really been funding. There's units in here that 2 of them are they're limping by. They got them going this morning, so we'd have air this afternoon. The last meeting we didn't have air. It was a chiller. It's on the roof. We didn't get the life out of the chiller, what we thought we were going to get out of the chiller. We replaced every compressor on it. At this time, there's a leak in the coil, and we have another bad compressor. So that's where the money she's talking about there, and 110,000 may not be enough to replace that chiller. But in the conversation we've been having, what they're looking at is a double chiller, half the size on each side, and the fact that we're not down. If you're not aware, there's been mornings we've been here and court had to shut down because we had no air at all. So if we did actually drop that back to a 2-chiller system, at least we'd have some air. And that's what the discussion is now. That's what we're trying to come to a point of.
All right, so using that as an example,
Yes, sir.
obviously you just wanted a number of not to exceed from this meeting, but I guess I'm asking for direction from you all to give me, your top 3, top 5. What are your numbers at? 650,000. That's, off of something that generated 2.9 million, possibly 3 million next year. Where are we looking at with balancing? And then what are we going to carve off? And then I think that we need to have a discussion about what we want to see get pushed forward, because I'll tell you, up until the email that I received from Charles today, I never knew that there was a 90,000 or a 30,000 or a dollar discussion about a feasibility study. And it makes my blood pressure go up. I don't like that. I don't like hearing about that via, some electronic mails. I like hearing about that right here and knowing, we're all on the same page with that. Because I'll tell you right now, I'm not for a new courthouse or a new sub-office or a new jail or anything like that until we can deal with these issues. When we can deal with all these, then we'll look at doing something. And if we want to let the promise zone save us, then we spend a lot of time and energy in the promise zone getting into that bailiwick. Maybe there's something that we qualify for there. Collier County's received, I think, over $2.5 million. We've gotten nothing from being in the promise zone designation. It's because Janet and her office of one doesn't have the time to wear all the hats that she wears right now. So I want to hear from you all, and Commissioner Wills, it sounds like you really have a strong grasp of where our biggest and baddest burdens are. And I love the idea of redundancy on a with a two chiller system versus just one. And if that's $250,000, then let's give you all the green light to say, check that box off and let's move forward. And then if we're hearing from all the constitutionals that they despise the parking lot and they want better shrubs, while that makes my blood pressure go up as well, and I hate shrubs and parking lots and all that stuff, and I love marl, and I don't mind washing my truck from time to time, I'm willing to listen to that and move that forward as well. That's the will of our constituents and our constitutional officers. And so let me know.
The 480, Jennifer, is any of that, none of that's grant money?
60,000 of it is proposed to come from other sources.
Okay, so 420 would be actual.
Correct.
Okay.
Is that all you had, Ms. Davis?
For the capital, yes.
Okay. Did you have any other pieces of your proposal you want to do before we?
So the current rate is 8.4909, and this next schedule shows what that brings in, $16.2 million. The rollback rate is 8.2631, and that would be a difference of $435,000. And then I went a quarter of a mil down, all the way down to 1 mil to show the differences of what that looks like for discussion purposes.
So 1 mil reduction generates the 14.3, and even none of these numbers or all of these numbers actually have the 1 cent balanced in.
Yeah, the 1 cent, just for this purposes, would stay constant.
At 40%, based off of 2.9.
If you went down on this, you would have to increase the 40%.
No, that's what I'm asking, though. What?
Or 60, yeah, 60%.
60% dependence.
Yes.
Right, and so if you were to not do, I think what you're saying is you were to not do something on the capital side and you use that you would be more dependent, but you could use that to offset this figure. But for this schedule, the 1 cent transfer is constant.
Yep.
And this is just showing from an ad valorem perspective of what that number looks like if it's reduced.
So you're using a 0.4 adder on all of these
Right.
of your 1 cent sales tax.
Yes.
Yep. Okay.
So the 8.49 would balance, Charles, would balance the budget with all the constitutionals, their needs.
For the most part, yes, we do have a couple of little small tweaks that we're working on with the sheriff's office for end of the year budget, but it's nothing material. I believe we've already anticipated a lot of that within discussions with his budget office. So we are there. We did not fund the sheriff's request in full. I think we're probably at 50% penetration in that. I forget what the exact number is, but it's around
Right.
$500,000.
Right, his request was
I'd round it up to $1 million.
$884,000, I believe.
Right.
And we funded, I think he would like to speak to you, if you would like to speak to him now or later. He has a few things that he did want to speak to you about that we discussed right before the meeting. But we did fund his 3% increase, his FRS, his insurance, and the COPS grant that you all agreed to do way back.
Previously.
and that was 120,000, I think it was. And so he does have a few other line items that we haven't funded. He requested 4 new LEO officers that we did not fund. You at the last or several meetings ago did approve for him to apply for another COPS grant to get more officers, but I think that's something you would like to speak to you about today before you make your final decision on military.
So how much so far have you, Sheriff's Department?
I'm sorry.
How much so far has, when you add those up?
It's 554 plus 136 total.
554?
690.
Yeah.
690?
Right.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, just to echo what Commissioner Turner said a while ago, I agree with that 100%. Until we have what we already have in existence in the condition that it should be, it is hard to look forward as in the building something else. And this rate, what this millage rate is, Commissioner Harris, what that's saying is like Mr. Chairman said a while ago, this for the first time in many years gives us the opportunity to do things that we haven't had, and we're not raising anything. It's just staying the same. There wouldn't be an increase in taxes. And if you look at it, when you go through the schedule, really just through the rollback rate to the average taxpayer, myself, there would be a $16 savings, and that's it. But that $16 to me over a year is not that much. But to the county, that is quite a bit what we can actually use to get us to where we need to be. So I just echoing that.
Okay. Okay.
And also, we need to prioritize. Like he was saying, we putting bandages on things, but when you do that, you have to go back and refix that same thing over and over again, and we end up in the same boat that we're in now. So we just need to start prioritizing what need to come first.
I agree.
But
I agree.
I think everything you put on capital, then y'all did prioritize, right?
I don't know that that's prioritized from top to bottom. Is that what you mean? Those are priorities. That's why they're on there.
Yeah,
Is that
that's
you
what I
mean?
meant.
Yes, that's right.
And then if you could do this, you could come back next year.
They're going to, it'll be the same thing every year. There'll be a priority list of things
Yeah,
that are
but maybe not this
bleeding
big,
really bad.
Maybe not that.
And that's
big.
the way
Hope
we've
not.
done it in the years past is what it's been. We come when we have a list just like you have now, and then we'd sit down and go and speak to each other and figure out, like Commissioner Turner said, what's the worst one? Let's target the worst one, and if we get 3 out of 7, we're better off than we were. So and then the following year, same thing. You address it again. Where's our worst area? And that in the years to come, we could start moving forward on those.
Yep. Okay. All right. Again, our mission here today is to just set a not to exceed rate. Before we move forward, are we going to allow constitutionals?
It's up to you, boss man.
Sheriff?
I think you're crazy if you don't let the sheriff speak, but that's your choice.
You got a gun? Because you got a gun? Is that why? Sheriff Whidden? Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were finished. I'm sorry. I thought you were done. Okay.
Put things in perspective a little bit for your conversation, and I'll be done. So I did a schedule for residential taxable values, and I showed at taxable values going across from 50, or just values going across from 50 to $250,000, what that looks like, and the difference between the 8.4909 and the rollback rate. So you'll see if someone has a just value of, let's do $100,000, they get their exemptions, and they have a taxable value of $50,000. Their taxes would be $11.39 dollars more for the year than it would be at rollback rate. Okay. So you can follow that all the way through. And then we also did one for commercial taxable values. It's a little different.
Put it on vibrate here.
Because they don't get the exemptions. And so $100,000, using the same analogy for commercial industrial, would be $22.78. And that's all I have.
Okay.
So we can-
Awesome. Okay.
Steve,
Sheriff Whidden?
take that up.
Leave your bullets with Chief Deputy Nelson, please.
Thank you very much, Sheriff Whidden, for the record. Appreciate you allowing me to speak to you all today. Yes, we presented our budget, as you're well aware, and you guys were, Charles and Jennifer were great in working with us, and they've got us almost there. A couple issues I want to talk about. The total number that we absolutely have to have, that we have to need to work with this year. Now, this is not including the 4 deputies that I put in, but everything else that we have to have, these are real numbers, okay, is $12,975,000. With that, that's roughly $82,000 more than what has been funded. Okay, so basically, I need you guys to approve $82,000 to make me whole to where we can operate. Truth be told, if we hadn't had vacancies this past year, we would have been over budget this year, okay, because of this. So we've had increases, Trinity's gone up, there's some other items that has come up that's costing us more that we have to have this year. So again, that number is roughly $82,000 that we need, okay. If you would allow me to speak just a couple minutes on the additional deputies, what I'm looking at doing is, since 2009, since I took office, we've had the luxury of seeing a decrease in crime every year, okay? Not bragging, but it's something I'm very proud of. Now, there's various ways that we do that, but one of the things is having the tools to do that with. Can you guys, I want to ask you a question. What do you think our number one issue is as far as crime in Henry County? Carson?
Number one issue?
Yeah.
Traffic tickets.
No.
Drugs,
Sir?
opioids,
No.
drugs.
Drugs is right up there with it.
Breaking and entering.
Thefts. Thefts is our number one problem. Can you tell me who conducts the majority of these thefts?
The drugs.
Drug users. What's going on right now is I have a certain number that's budgeted for narcotics positions within our agency. These guys are the ones that wear plain clothes and they're undercover and they work drugs both sides of the county. We're seeing an epidemic. We're seeing an increase in meth, heroin, opioids, things of that nature. The problem is that these guys are trying to work both sides of the county. This is a big county geographically. It's spread out. It's very hard for them to go back and forth, but they do it. The 4 deputies were for those positions, so I could have actually 2 teams on both because they can't work drugs by themselves. They have to have multiple agents working. So if we could get that, I really think that that would put a real severe dent in the drug use or the drug problem that we have in the county. Again, you know, it's can we get by with it? We can, but we're going to see a steady increase. I think everybody here knows somebody or has seen somebody that's on drugs or uses drugs, or you or somebody you know has been a victim of theft or something related to narcotics. So that's why we put the 4 additional deputies in there for that purpose. We've seen a decrease in crime every year, and that's great. But again, I have to have the tools to keep that trend going. And I really believe in my heart this would help that trend, if at all possible. So, any questions?
I'm dying to tear into those numbers, but I'm just going to let it ride.
Which numbers?
Well, you got 23,000 cars a day that drive down the highway, just on Highway 27 alone. Mm-hmm. So I guess I'm thinking from the FHP, City of Clewiston, and the Sheriff's Department. Mm-hmm. And I'd love to know, like, how many breaking and enterings do we have a year on the average?
A lot.
What's that number?
I don't know the total number off the top of my head, but that's our
are they mostly performed by
burglaries of houses, burglaries of vehicles, snatch and grabs off of porches.
Is it Henry County constituents robbing from Henry County constituents, or is it?
Yeah, it's Henry County.
It is
drug users, and they grab the stuff, they pawn it to get $20 to get another rock or whatever they have to do. So.
And off of that offense, are they incarcerated?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then what does that usually hold them for? Is it 24 hours or ROR or?
Commissioner, I will tell you that we have drug users, and I won't say any names because we all know them. We're probably related to some of them. But we have one individual that's been arrested almost 40 times in this county for various drug and other criminal activities, and he's back out on the street. So, again, we have an issue where they're pled down or they're put on probation. Either way, they're back out on the street committing crimes over and over and over.
They're not going to.
And to add on to what the sheriff is saying, guess how much help we're able to give them as a county or as a sheriff's department? Almost none, very little help, which will come back.
Guess how much help we're able to give the bad guy or the sheriff's
One.
department?
No, the bad guy who got arrested, and so now we've got one who's been arrested 40 times. We have nothing as a
How about
correctional
programs?
facility or program to help move them away from that.
Right.
Which I don't now this very second, but before we adjourn, I absolutely want to come back and talk about the needs assessment, how that addresses the biggest problem of what he's talking about as a piece of that, because it all ties in together.
Right. So, and again, yes, I'm the sheriff, but I'm also a member of the community just like you, and I'm affected personally just like you. So I'm just trying to find the best way to address this. And again, we can address it. I just need the tools to work with. So that's something, if you want to think about.
Sheriff, did you say your number was 12.975 or 12?
12,975, yes, sir.
Okay, it wasn't 0.975. It was almost 13 million.
Yes, sir.
Right at 13.
Yes, sir.
But that
Yep.
includes your other sources that you get directly as well, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's not all that we've generated through general fund and revenues that we give
Yeah,
towards them.
what I need from you guys is additional, from what's presented, 82.
82K.
Yes, sir.
It was 50 last year, I remember.
Yeah, everything's going up and up. So,
Yes, I know.
yes, sir, Commissioner Wilson.
I understand the epidemic. I understand that. We were just in a conference a little while back, and, the statistics are staggering of the deaths because of the opioids. The question I would have there, we're having this conversation. We're trying to find a way to make ends meet in every aspect. You're asking for 4 folks, so the reality is if we could come up with 2, and maybe 2 next year.
Listen,
is that something that you could live with
I'm not-
half-heartedly?
I'm not going to kick a gift horse in the mouth. If we could get it, I would be greatly appreciative. But again, it's the way that our numbers are set up. It would be nice to have 4 so they can work 2 and 2,
But if you had 2 to go with what you
Three
have right
and three,
now.
3 and 3, yes, sir.
That 4
Yeah.
is not 82,000. That's not included in that.
No,
82,000 is what you need to stay alive.
that's what we need to
Plus
stay
an
alive.
additional-
Yes, sir.
I got you.
Yeah, so, food for thought.
Go back on food.
Sir? No, it's supposed to be increase. All right, thank y'all. Any more questions?
I think we're good for now.
Okay, I appreciate it.
And thank you, Sheriff. And I don't feel right offering the sheriff opportunity to talk and not the other constitutionals.
Absolutely.
Mr. Langford, do you wish to address the group or the board?
Pat Langford. What did you decide on the expansion of the office in Clewiston, the branch office? Did anything come up on that?
He's got that.
We are currently funding out of this year's budget a assessment of the need of the space, trying to rework the space itself first, and then identify if any additional space might actually need to be constructed or expanded. So we have we're going through the process of securing Joe Marack, who's done spatial needs for us before. We have the funding within capital improvements this year. So it's a matter of him generating that report and letting us know what his recommendations are.
Okay. All right. But just keep in mind that Clewiston's as big as Lavelle, just about, in people-wise. And especially in driver's license over there, they do almost the same amount of business that we do over here. And we're really cramped over there. They need more space. During tax season, they're lined up outside the doors in bad weather. So I'm looking out for the Clewiston people, okay?
I went and got my tags Friday,
Yeah.
and I was beside a lady from Broward County, and she said the wait there was 6 weeks. That's why she come to Clewiston.
Yeah, I think it's a great problem. I really do. I can't get over how many people I hear from Miami-Dade and Broward. They actually schedule an appointment in their tax collector's office. So they'll get an appointment at 3 o'clock, and then they go at 3 and they wait till 4:30, right at 5 before they're even seen. And we're feeling the effects of that. We're feeling the effects of that greatly.
Yeah.
And also, I've been told, and you look at it, if you live in Coral Springs, or you live in, let's say, you live in Wellington, it's easier for you to come to Clewiston, and it's a less of a wait for you to get service in Clewiston than it is for you to drive to one of the sub offices, not the headquarters, and go to there and actually get the services that are being rendered in those counties. And
Well,
we're
that's
feeling the
great.
effect of that big time in Hendry County, in Quilliston specifically. I don't know if y'all are having that over here much.
Not as bad. But that's the great thing about living in Hendry County, and we want to keep it that way. And, you know, I don't want those people in Clewiston lined up out there in the rain. And we need to hire another person there. We have no room at all to put anybody at the counter. So just please keep that in mind. We need a little growth over there.
What if, I mean, once again, this gets into, Charles, not to beat you up too bad about a bureaucratic answer of we're having a spatial assessment done, but good God, that sounded like one. How do we go about knowing? I mean, we have a tremendous amount of square footage over there that's just sitting idle, hence the room that's between the two restrooms. I don't know if that's
We're
That's
using
been
that.
utilized.
it's already being utilized.
They remodeled.
Wasn't being utilized the last time I was in there, and that hasn't been that long ago, so that's good.
It just
Well,
got
it's
through
not
remodeling
being-
it.
It's not being utilized yet, but we're going to add concealed weapons over there, and that's where we're going to put it.
And then what about as you go out or you come in from the grass parking lot and you walk in and you're heading due south and your office is where Kim is on the left and we have our stuff on the right. How difficult is it to pull that into what the tax collector is making a request for? I don't know whose offices that are. I don't know if it's our satellite or what.
Probation.
Probation's in there.
Don't you have an office there?
There's one vacant office that may be the size of the section where the clerk is currently sitting, and that office has actually been wrapped in and is used for the employees to have a place to eat their lunch if they want to eat on site. They use
What
it
about
as a
that
break room.
massive thing outside that's not used ever, and then the Janet B. Taylor Auditorium for eating lunch?
Janet B. Taylor Auditorium, we've not done an assessment as far as how often it's used, to be honest with you. To look at the rotunda, I believe we did have a meeting with the health department to
We
look at.
did, and it's not going to help us.
Might be just as expensive, if not more so, to tie the roof into that area and be able to enclose it in as it would be just a whole brand new wing on one
The
side.
answer would be to come across the front and square that in. If you walk into the tax collector's office, okay, if you squared that building in, you'd a tremendous amount of room. And I think, from my experience, I think that would be less of a job than trying to roof that open area out back. And it would also be more convenient to the public to have it up front.
There'd be enough room.
Oh, it'd be plenty of, yes, it'd get us where we needed.
Well, part of that, if you actually close that in, part of that's a closet. It had an old ice machine and stuff in it. And, reality was, we could have put the probation down further, and we could have opened more space up. But at the time we did this, it was seasonal. I mean, part of your season, you was slammed. Part of the season, you had 2 or 3 people. And so that's why at the point of the time, that's why we did what we did there, just to utilize the space we had. We were working with the health department. The health department had to give us their blessings on any walls we took out, anything we did in there. And but if you added that front there, you could move probation as well and enlarge the tag office there and get quite a bit of space by doing that.
What does probation consist of? What is
It's one little office. Actually, we
But
took a
what-
10 by
what-
10 and cut it in half.
what happens though? Like what happens there that
They
a
have-
probation meeting has to occur
They have nearly 300 clients.
Yeah,
Of course, nothing
they're
happens.
busy.
on a weekly?
Monthly, I
Yeah.
think.
I mean,
I just learned that Friday.
So 10
I didn't
people
know
a
it was that
day.
many.
They have to check in, Carson,
I think
for
this,
probation, and they gotta pay their fees.
The employees that I've had that have been on probation, they always have to drive to LaBelle. Are they lying to me, or do
maybe they wanted the whole day off.
clock for an hour?
They're there.
Are they on state
They are
probation
busy.
or county probation?
Okay, so state probation happens over here, and county can happen in 2 spots.
Well, it's court,
Okay,
if they want them in Clewiston or if they want them in LaBelle.
I got you.
But working that facade like Mr. Langford's talking about, that would generate quite a bit of space. The only thing that might be an issue there is the AC closet where all the equipment's at, and we just have to make sure we can get to that. 'Cause that's a one air handler system, and it does the whole building. So,
Well,
and that's one thing you couldn't move.
But there's nothing on the front, right?
But if it's not.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. You'd have to make sure we can get to that.
But even if it's a particular way they have to do it because they have to keep them in sight. By law, they can't put them on the end because when they test, they can't test them in the back room. That's why it has to be done.
Yeah, we can't
They'd have to
spread,
split it
you're
up.
right, Spurt, we can't spread out one office down there and one office over here. We got
You'd
to
have to
be
put
all-
tags over
we've gotta
there
be
and-
together.
Driver's license
Well, that'd be
over
all
there.
open space at that point, though. You could, that'd all be open space if you
And
took
that's
that
what
out
we
and
need.
removed it.
The way it is now, 3 of our counter people can't even see who's sitting in the lobby.
Right.
Because
But
the
if you
way
added
it
up
was built.
outside there, which now reality is, that's the only load-bearing wall in the building, your 2 outside walls, last study we did there. So we wouldn't be able to take that wall out.
The-
We'd
the-
have to-
the
we'd have to
outside
work
wall,
around
the
it.
load-bearing,
Yes, sir,
right
that's
there.
correct.
Wing it to the parking
We
lot.
couldn't take it out, we'd have to work around that.
Wing it to the parking lot.
You know, I wasn't around, but years ago, it used to be in the Kmart, I think
Right,
it was,
yep,
Plaza.
yep.
We had 7, I understand, we had 7 counter workers then, plus the branch manager. And Clewiston has grown, and whenever we moved from there to where we are now, we have only room for 5 counter workers and 1 branch manager. So
We know
lost
there's an
2
issue,
people.
right? We know there's an issue. We all see the glaring
Yeah,
need.
just gotta figure out a way to make it work.
We've got to continue plowing
Yeah,
forward. with it.
Thank you very
Thank you,
much.
Mr. Langford.
Thank you.
Ms. Hoops? She's going to add something. She was raising her hand and jumping up and down back there. So
Get a
I
sawzall
know
and
she's
cut the
tell she's
cubicles
doing
down.
a voting machine right now. Watch. Smile like you're
Good
coming up.
afternoon. For the record, Brenda Hoots, Supervisor of Elections. I didn't really have a lot to add. I was jumping down as far as how many days a month I think probation is there. They're not there every day of the week. But I do want to add, when you're thinking about space, remember that we do use the Janet Taylor Auditorium for early voting. Early voting over there is great. Everybody loves it. We have plenty of space. We have more space than we have here. And we put a record number through of early voters, so I think it's only going to continue to grow.
You can
So you
always-
hope you'll keep that in mind, that if you take the auditorium away for something else, then I'll need different office space because I can't accommodate in just what we have.
Well,
I don't think you did
just
that.
before the firestorm occurs with that statement, I've in no way, shape, or form endorsed taking the Janet B. Taylor Auditorium away
I heard it
and
say
or
take
doing
the
anything with it.
auditorium away.
No,
What I'm saying is that if we could utilize some
No
square
way.
footage there to do
unless we
something
want to find some more office space.
on a daily basis.
We're happy there. We like it. We're good with what we've got, but I do need access to that space only a certain time of the year, and I thought it was working really great because a lot of different organizations use it throughout the year. I don't need it every day of the week, and I hate to see it just wasted, that I would have to have space that I'm only going to use a few times a year.
Do you need it 30 days out of the year? Is
Well, early voting starts 15 days prior to election. We use it for 13 days straight. And then now we do use it additional times. We do all of our election worker training over there several times prior to each election. So we do reserve it for that.
So 22 to 25 times, but the premise being the early voting is just, it's a nice walk through, the layout and everything is absolutely
Yeah, bring them in
ideal.
one door and route them on through and take them out another.
Okay.
Take some minutes.
Thank-
And then, of course, election day, we also use it.
Wasn't Janet Taylor built with a grant? And if it's with a grant, you can't touch it?
I'm not familiar with the genesis of that auditorium to be able to
It
speak to that
wasn't
right
built with a
now.
grant?
I don't think so.
The only
That
thing
would
there,
be
we
the
got to
whole
make sure we
building,
got Dr.
right?
Pepe's blessings, because that's still considered health department.
It's still a state building, exactly right. And you know, I mean, guys, this is a great conversation. I mean, think about the fact that at one point, what was it, Mr. Clark, you remember, it was at 1.9 that we were going to refurbish and or build a new sub-office? And then Alan and his team went over and for about 80 grand,
I think we're done.
Build a
you know,
sub-office.
I was going higher,
Did you?
you know. Commissioner Wheels, you weren't familiar with that at all, were you? And then the next thing you know, we're housing all the constitutionals in there, and we didn't build a building, and we moved the sheriff's department down to the building completely by himself. And we saved literally 7 figures, deep into 7 figures towards the taxpayers of Henry County.
Right.
I think it was, you know. And so, I mean, this is a great problem. You know, my hat wants to take and get a Ryobi Sawzall and cut cubicles in half and say, here you go, Mr. Langford, you got twice as many cubicles now. You can put 10 clerks in there. But I don't think that would work. But you know, I think that there's going to be an easy way to adjust that square footage and fix that problem. It's a good problem that we have there. So
We're happy with our space, so we don't want any changes.
I have seen some very aggressive entrepreneurs selling their ticket and
Oh,
getting
really?
moved up higher in the line at the tax collector's office. Which is, I mean, hey, you gotta love it.
Yeah, he
Capitalism
does
at
have a
its
line.
best.
I know I'm over there at least one day a week. The only thing I don't think is good, and that's for on the public's view, getting them to the property appraiser's office or getting them to building and zoning. They're not, they're in the front, they don't realize
Right.
explaining to them, you have to go outside and follow the sidewalk.
Right. That's right. I've noticed something myself.
Yeah, it's a little
Maybe a little
bit,
more
yeah.
signage would help with that.
I think you're right
We
about
talked
that.
about
It
that.
does,
It'd
yeah,
be
I
nice
totally
if you
agree.
didn't have to go outside, that you sort of could, once you get them inside, to get them there.
Turn
but,
left and go down the hall.
At least we're all in one building now. That's an accomplishment.
Thank you, Ms. Hoods.
Thank you, Ms. Hoods.
Anyone else? Yes.
I just have a comment about that, not to get ahead of ourselves on that, because we don't know what that's gonna look like, but that was a discussion if we came.
Go ahead.
If we rounded off, like, the tax collector was saying, if there was a way, and that's part of the study that Charles was talking about, if there was a way to have a main entrance and to be able to bring people through the building and do away with that whole going around.
Walk around.
You know, you have
Yeah.
the middle part, you could have some kind of walkway through there and be able to get them to the back of the building so they don't have to walk around
If you add on to the front, you can do that.
with a new, right.
Signs.
That was what we were hoping for.
I think we're locked into
Okay.
the way the building is laid out too much right now. I think we need to be looking at.
Walk around to the clerk's office.
I think we need to be looking at taking that
Just go.
that area in the center that never gets used at all because it's 8,000 degrees in Florida 90% of the year. And I think we need to be looking at making that an entranceway of sorts, and then you split off from there. And then there's actual offices that are in there. That's where your managers go to, or what, I don't know. But I think once again, it's a great problem that we have, and looking at $250,000 or so. And I think you would be stunned at what you could do to that building. You know,
Mr. Langford, did you have something else to add?
Well, the only thing I want to clarify is.
Yeah.
Pat,
Come up,
Pat.
take the microphone, please. Ms. Butler will throw stuff at us if you don't.
Pat Langford again. I just want to make clear that I do not want the Janet Auditorium, okay? I wouldn't even use it if you gave it to me. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Did I miss any constitutionals in the audience?
He's a security cat.
Okay. Ms. Butler, do you wish to address?
Mine's pretty much the same as it was last year, except for some additional work, because I've got one key employee that's gonna be retiring, that I'm gonna have to bring somebody in very early to train.
So a little overlap,
It's
is what
gonna
you're
be-
saying.
Yeah.
So you got a decline in your budget?
5,000 more than mine. More, because I'm gonna have to have this person in there because of,
You'll be paying two at one time.
yeah. Yeah, they're gonna have to have training for a while to be able to take his place.
Okay.
And I've already talked to Jennifer about it.
Okay. Okay. I think the ball's back in our court now. Before we move into is there any further discussion with the board? To begin with, I would like to ask is I personally am not, but is there anyone in favor of going above the 8.4909?
No.
Okay, so we're not talking about an increase at all, no matter what.
No.
Okay, is there any other discussion? At this point, everything that's been presented to us has been budgeted and planned around the 8.4909. Is there anyone who would like to discuss that further, or are we okay with entertaining a motion to set the trim at 8.4909 for the next year?
no one has any desire to implement rollback.
No. I think this year, if we stayed at the 8.49 and do as many projects as the money will go for, I think next year we'll be able to come back and roll back the tax rate.
This is exactly what we said last year this time.
Well, we'll say it again this year then.
Well, just looking at it, I feel the same way. I believe next year we'll be poised to do the rollback. This is like you said, Mr. Chairman, this is the first time you've seen it. And as working on the other side of these numbers, it's the first time I've seen the opportunity to, actually step out and get some stuff done too, so.
Yeah.
Jennifer, in the numbers, is there any did we set aside anything to pay the disaster relief back, or was that going to be another year away?
We were looking to do that after this fiscal year. Wait till this fiscal year ends, look and see where we end up based on our projection, and if there is a delta, we would come back before you and request that to potentially pay it back. But we weren't comfortable making that recommendation now until we know what that number looks like.
So if there's any money left over, we can go back to disaster relief.
Over and above what we projected that we
Right.
needed to.
Commissioner Harris, just to answer your question a little bit more succinctly, is I believe it was last year we ended up with a $930,000 in revenues over expenditure at the end of the year that we were able to apply to the fund balance issue that we were dealing with unrestricted reserves. The year prior to that was somewhere around $650,000, $700,000. So we are seeing a revenue over expenditure savings at the end of each year from the budgeted numbers that we've been applying directly to reserves over time. That's not guaranteed every single year. That's why we don't ask you to budget it.
This will be
but-
the first year to start paying it back.
Hold on. So last year, we had a realization of $930K roughly of revenues generated over expenditures that we had in the budget.
Correct.
But we did not put $1 of that back towards hurricane disaster relief funding. Correct?
Correct.
Okay. So I want to clarify, I mean, and I kind of got that. What did you say that again now, Charles?
The target for that 930,000 was the negative fund balance that was in the audit that we discovered 3 years ago.
Okay.
Trying to knock that out as quickly as we can. I had hoped that it would take about 6 years for us to get through that balance. It was
We're at-
somewhere in there where we'd be able to knock it out in 3.
Okay.
Because
This year will be the year that we've completely mitigated that.
everything stays all holy and sanctified, we should be able to knock it out this year.
All right.
Okay. And still have maybe some funding left.
And that's why to me, we should be looking at implementing rollback, because we had a projection, I think, of only 1.7% increase or something like that. I can't remember what the property appraiser said, but it was a nominal, and Mr. Pelletier didn't even really want to give us that. And then it came back and it was actually roughly a 3.8% increase over what we anticipated. This year, we're already understanding that we're going to have a 2.76% increase. Fair statement? Is that not what I was given?
2.76 is over rollback rate.
Over rollback rate,
At
okay.
8.49.
Okay, so at 8.49, it would be equilibrium, so there wouldn't be an increase, so it would be a status quo. But we know for a fact that we had a surplus of $930K. We did put 40%, no, we put 60% towards capital improvement, correct?
Yes.
Was 60% towards capital, 40%
No,
towards,
no.
60% towards balancing,
Yes.
40% towards capital improvement.
Yes.
With a $930,000 increase. At rollback, we generate 15.7, and we have a $435,000 difference, and we're hearing that, and we know that we're going to have an increase in sales tax. I just think that we really need to be looking at giving the taxpayers of Hendry County a tax break. For the first time ever, we can even contemplate having that discussion and still do a tremendous amount of the capital improvement upgrades that we want to do.
So but what you'd have to do then is go back and you'd have to cut 435,000 out of your budget right now.
Well, and that's the problem, and Commissioner Turner is spot on because of the facts that are in the numbers that we know happen. The problem with that is extrapolating that forward, we don't know what that's going to be, so we have to budget what those numbers are. If we knew for sure it was hard and we knew for sure it was coming, then absolutely, but we don't have that crystal ball. We think, we know, we've got good faith and we got all reason to believe that, but it's hard to budget for not having in hand.
The actual reality is probably going to be that the sales tax numbers increase even greater than, we're probably going to have more than $3 million in sales tax increase. And we would be able to balance that and find the difference in there and give a tax break for the first time in 8 years. Because I mean, guys, 8.49 is really close. I mean, if you look at it at a 100% scale, we're at 85%. And I'm telling you, we're taxing people out of wanting to exist in Hendry County. We are.
It's just
Numbers-
not that
the
much of
numbers
a
don't
difference
support
that you're
that.
looking at, though, Commissioner.
But it's
you're
a
looking
start,
at
though.
$11 a year,
It's a start. though.
$15 a year.
But it's a point two, and it's a 0.23 actually, and it's getting back down to now when we do it next year, we send a message. Staff understands that they can do it at that level, and now next year with an increase, maybe we get to 7.9, and then with another increase, we get back. Right now, we are asking the people that pay to pay more than their fair share for services that are being rendered, and I just think that we as a commission have got to start looking at pulling the reins back on the millage, because we're millaging people out of existing in Hendry County.
Well, Commissioner Turner, I typically agree and know that you're spot on with most, but I'm telling you this, the data that we're looking at absolutely doesn't support that. We're showing growth.
We're showing growth. But look at our growth rates in comparison to our neighboring communities.
Yeah, we're killing them. They're
Lee County-
nowhere near what we are. Well, you can't compare us to those. That's anomalies. You can't compare Henry to Lee or Palm Beach. You compare us to Glades, compare us to DeSoto, compare us to those guys. They're still in the ones.
And what you're looking at here is, and for the last 7 months I've sat on the board, everything we've talked about is improving our quality of service, improving our facilities, improving the things that we're going to do as the county board. And the only way you're going to do that is to fund it. You can't keep taking, I mean, I've sat on the other side of these numbers and been told that. You got to work with this. This is all you have. Work with it. Reality is, that's not reality.
If we
You want these buildings fixed, you want these units fixed, you want these parking lots fixed, you're going to have to fund it. And the reality is, we're not asking for more money. All we're asking for is the exact same. I'm a taxpayer. That's the reason I ran for office, because I wanted to make sure that when I was sitting up here, I was going to do the best I could to represent Hendry County, not only the employees of Hendry County, but the taxpayers as well. You see the problem, like Mr. Langford, the problem he has, the sheriff, the problem he has. If we start rolling back now, we're not going to be able to adjust these problems. Next year, we'll be set for a rollback. We can. We're not asking for more. We're just asking to fund what we're trying to get done now. That's all we're doing.
And this all started, I think, in 2006-07, when we went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, almost 6 years, and rolled it back at 6.5.
And your employees didn't get a raise for 7 years.
I was on the commission, and Ms. Butler's there, and everybody had to go back and do away with everything.
Guys, I can assure you,
And the 6.5 back then was too low, but we did it. And now if we hadn't cut that to 6.5 and stayed at 7 or 7.5, we wouldn't be talking all
right.
this stuff.
think about that though. Think about that. So if we'd have kept our budget at 90 million,
No,
we had to cut.
no, if we would have kept our budget at 7
percent.
or 7.5.
It would have been greater than 90 million.
Well,
It would have been greater than 90 million.
I'm just looking at the tax roll.
I'm looking at the overall operating budget, and what I'm saying is that if we generate 90 million, we're going to spend 90 million. If we generate 70 million, we're going to generate 70 million. We couldn't do it. We could not make it work, and staff told us every year at 6.5 we can't make it work. And I understand nobody got raises. Guess what? At Quality Electric, nobody got raises, and we had to let a few people go. And I'm sure everybody in the private sector had to do that. And I heard state employees and I heard local people say, oh, my retirement, I'm having to cash in my 401k. Everybody had to do that. We all had to exist within the confines that we're given. What I'm saying is that we are asking the taxpayers to continue to fund our operations. Last year at 8.49, we generated 15.62. At rollback, we would generate 15.78. And I think that we can, that to me is not being ludicrous with the request. It is operating with the confines of what you have. You look at your capital improvement request and you look at the dollars that are coming in, you're going to be able to meet those needs, and you're going to operate within the confines of what you are having from a revenue standpoint. But I mean, clearly it's a 4-1. Y'all want to do 8.4909. What I'm saying is that we have to start looking, and we have to start making ourselves attractive by beating down the cost of living in Hendry County. And 8.49, it may seem so trivial to go to 8.263, but this is something that I'm passionate about, and we've got to do everything. It's no different than we're raising that garbage assessment from, and we're not really raising it. We're re-implementing the garbage assessment to go from 110 and some change to back to 220, I think. Or perhaps, is it 240? I don't know what, 240. That's $130 more a year. It's $130 more for the same exact service that they're getting.
But we've been giving that to them for nothing, the $100.
No, we've been giving it to them for $110. That's not
Yeah,
nothing.
But we give it out of the fund for how many years? Jennifer, how many years we give the 100 back?
Ignore the difference out of the funds.
Yeah,
Three,
huh?
about 3 years.
3 years, and we didn't have to do that, but we did. And how much is a, huh? 5 years, okay? And now what they're gonna say when they see that? They're gonna say,
It's a tax increase.
yeah, but it's not, but it is. It's not, but it is. Jennifer, so if you took the 3% out, how much is that?
$388,000.
You know, the reality is, Commissioner Turner, I understand what you're saying, I do, and you're spot on. We do need to start looking at that. But the reality is, it's cheaper to live in Hendry County than it is Collier County or Lee County. We have folks that live there, live here, and commute there because it's cheaper to live here than it is there. And it's just a matter of one more year is what we're saying. And I understand, I'd love to see the taxes go down as well. But in order to get to where we need the quality of service, we're getting beat up right now over our cemeteries. Fact is, you got to have bodies to do that work.
Cemeteries, by the way, cemetery's number one complaint I get now.
Absolutely. Well, and Clewiston it is. I can tell you, I was the one that got most of those complaints, and it's there. It's accessible. And the problem is, we got to be able to fund what we want to get done. So
We didn't do anything for cemeteries this year?
No, we had an employee out and we've just hired, started last week.
Yeah.
In that department, so hopefully that will get better.
How does IT stack up? IT, are they keeping the same budget, or are they going down, or
Well, I believe they're proposed to stay the same at this
stay
point.
the same?
Could we, would you like for me to address the needs assessment for the jail? So that's on, I don't know if you got to explain that or understand. Does everyone know what's going on? Because unfortunately, the Florida laws don't allow us to talk about it, so.
No, I do not know what's going on.
Okay. As a result of Public Service Commission meeting and the public safety meeting that we have over the last year or so, Captain Bastis from the Sheriff's Department, who runs the jail, and then Don Oliver and the judges, and even the chief judge from the circuit came and addressed the deteriorating mechanical facilities that they are dealing with. We know that we've addressed some of it. We put a roof on, we've done some facade work, and we're continuing to do some of those improvements. And even with that, even as of this past Friday, so it wasn't something that anybody had been hiding. We just, as of less than a week old, that I've asked Charles to look into figuring a legitimate way to make that happen. Captain Bastis reported that they're at 286 of 300 beds or 302 beds or something like that. So the capacity of the jail is reaching its limit. The mechanical facilities of the jail is past their expected life, and they're experiencing failures. The ability to house everything from female inmates, then you have juvenile inmates, is just a absolute nightmare. They're having to put kids in the hospital piece of it. They do not have the ability to have I think he used the term therapeutic community, which is they don't have space to help some of the repeat offenders that are on drugs, for example, and then bring in, be it Silas Care or whoever it may be, because they don't have the room and space to have a facility to sit down and work with them, so they won't even be addressed. As you all well know, and I'm sure Ms. Butler could address the compounding interest of courtrooms busting, waiting in here. I don't know if you've ever served jury duty, but I did, and it was an absolute train wreck. Well, it was before you took care of it. But then parking, your number one is graveyards. My number one is parking. I took 3 calls over the last week of just, for some reason, I guess I have the ability to fix and enlarge the parking lot at the courthouse. But all of that added together, no one will touch us. Ms. Papanaugh can't touch a grant. The state won't touch us. No one's going to touch us to look at it or to talk about a funding mechanism without a needs assessment. The needs assessment does not simply mean we're going to go build a whole new big facility somewhere, but it does mean that it will be looked at by an engineer/architect to bring in the highest and best use of what we have and then what we need with the extrapolation of the growth of population over the next 20 to 30 years. And so having said that, we're not asking for money to build a new facility. We're asking for the money to be split. We've got about a $90,000 estimate. We're asking for it to be split between the three major players, being the BOCC, the courts, and the sheriff, because they're the ones that, you know, have the main stake in it. What we have to have is we have to have that official report to show here's where your problems are. You can renovate, you can add and take care of it for 20 years, or maybe it is build another facility. We don't know. But what we do know is that we are experiencing timed out facilities that are full, an inadequate parking situation, again, at the seat of the county, and irresponsible lack of services, and to some degree, to a large degree, to a population that really needs it. If we started today, if we had the money in hand today, we know that it's going to take a large amount of time to do the needs assessment alone. If we had it in hand and they said, yes, you need a facility, we know that it would take an extraordinarily long time to get it funded and get it off the ball. And then it would take a year or 2 years of construction. So even all that said, if we started today, we're several years out before a shovel ever touches the ground. But we have to have a professional's opinion, and the professional, not just opinion, but insight on what we need before we can ever get off the block. So that's where it went. And that wasn't me doing it. That was, again, the Public Safety Committee talking about it, and with those entities that are living in those trenches every day, asking us and begging us, please give us some relief, some hope, something that we can do to get to a better place. So that's where I asked Charles to look into it, figure out how we can fund this so that we can have something in hand.
30,000.
The whole thing's going to be approximately 90. We've asked to split it 3 ways. So that's where we arrived at the 30.
Board,
That's right.
then they're gonna tell us we need a new building.
I suspect they're going to tell us what we know, but again, no senator's going to put us in appropriations, no grant's going to talk to us until we have this in hand. It's not going to happen.
Afford until.
You cannot. That,
I understand what you're talking
okay,
about.
Commissioner Turner, is that enlighten anything, or?
No, it gives me a tremendous amount of background, and I'll just say that just thinking back 20 years in front of, or thinking forward 10, 5, 20 years, I can't think of a more reactive thing to be putting energy into than you know, a new jail, a new courthouse facility, a new things. It's just these are the conversations that I don't like sitting in this chair, but you know, we got to have them. So.
Well, and the truth is are we going to wait until it completely falls, or we have a complete and utter failure?
I mean, listen, I've been elected for 9 years now. I think day one that I got on, we were gonna get sued because we had inmates sleeping in canoes, and I was the devil because I wanted to treat inmates inhumanely, and I think I even said the comment publicly. They're in jail, you know. I've told y'all 25 times. If I told you once, I struggle. You know, Al Morrell used to get on to me because he said, I don't understand. You know, I don't understand. He said, when you're sweeping the sidewalk, be an all-American sweeping the sidewalk. And I'd say, Coach, I understand, and I'll sweep your sidewalk to the best of my ability. But I've never missed practice. I don't come late to anything. And by God, I want to go to practice. I don't want to take up a broom and sweep. So I missed that whole thing. And my dad and Cricket and everybody else in my family, they beguile me because I don't look at landscaping and all that stuff, and I think that artificial turf should be laid everywhere and or P-rock your yard. So I miss on those facade things. But I don't see us having so much growth that it justifies building a new sub-office in Clewiston. Not that anyone has said we need to build a new sub-office. No one has said that. That we need a new jail in a different footprint than where we are right now, and we need a new courthouse right now. And I've looked at, and I'm not saying that we don't need it 20 years from now, but I've looked at a tremendous amount of Bieber estimates and where we were at in the height of the boom, and with Southwest Florida growing at 18 to 25%, and Henry County projected to grow 2.4 to 5%, it doesn't justify us spending, and everything that we've talked about is tens of millions of dollars. You cannot deny that. It's
easily
tens of millions of dollars that the constituents of Henry County will have to front, and with those upgrades, you have a higher administrative / overhead that makes those things operate. And it gets back to just like the other day, Ms. Embledge and staff brought us a wonderful idea for having a rental inspection program. But when I drive down Hookers Point Road, the last thing I need to do is open up a door and go look and see if a receptacle has a GFI over the sink and if it's meeting code. Because we can't even get the padlocks off the front door where the landlord can go up there and lock it at the end of the day and stack the mattresses in it. Well, let's deal with that blight first, and then we'll worry about the other things. So I digress. I apologize for getting on my soapbox. Call me crazy. I'm a registered Democrat that wants to lower the millage. And I think that we're having some
And you
things that we
could potentially be 100% spot on, but we won't know.
Yep.
Until
we spend 90 grand.
Until we spend 90 grand. That's
Okay.
right. And I don't like it, but one bit. But if we're ever going to get to a better place, and even retrofitting what we have, that's what we have to have, because we have to have that assessment to be able to go after funding to make that happen.
Yes, sir.
So,
Is the sheriff going to take 30 out of his budget?
well, that's be up to him. Yes, sir. Please come forward.
30, 30, 30.
I just wanted to address what Commissioner Carter was saying. He's absolutely right. We don't need a new jail facility in the future. We needed it 10 years ago. This jail was built in '84. It's 33 years.
Jennifer, give him the mic.
The reason we haven't been sued is because we keep polishing that Tootsie Roll over there. Okay, so it's going to happen. I mean, again, I've been in office for 9 years, came in when you are. Okay, I've brought it up time and time again, but I've never once got up and said, we got to have it right now, or I'm going to stand up there in Tallahassee and jump up and down and threaten and all that. No, I'm not doing that. But I'm saying we are going to have a new jail at some point. So why not do everything we can now to see what it's going to take to do that? That's all we're saying. But we are going to need a new facility. If you've spent any time in there, you know it's falling to the ground, literally. We keep putting Band-Aids, Neosporin. We buy Neosporin by the gallons, okay? So, I mean, it's bad. So all I'm saying is we're going to need it, and I'm just making you all aware of it. Let's do what we can to start looking down the line. I agree with Commissioner Swindle. We got to do what we can now, start preparing for that future. So thank That
you.
means you're willing to tell us you'll kick in that 30,000 and help out?
I don't know what you're talking about, Commissioner Wills.
Microphone must be
Testing?
Testing, is it on? We'll talk, yeah.
That time is coming. We don't need to wait till the roof falls in.
It's already falling in, literally, Ms. Bird, it's already falling in, honestly.
We need to find out what it takes to do what we have to do, you know.
Yeah.
Well,
I've
all of us in
got,
the same room, and we should be able to say we got 2 out of 3 right now. I mean,
I've got fans in my office right now drying the carpet out every time it rains, and that's no joke.
well, that should inspire you to spend that 30,000.
Hey, we,
Huh?
fill my 4 deputies and we'll talk. Thank you.
You got a little choked up on that, didn't you?
I think so.
We might hate that they're there, but either way it goes, it's our responsibility that we house them the right way, so.
Yep. Do we need to take public comment? At this point, is there any members of the public wish to address the board? Is that a Mr. Paul? I wasn't sure if that was a yes, me, or what. You come on up. I wasn't sure if you were just pointing.
Raul Batal, I'd like to commend to you the view of a city commissioner who's got more experience than most of you, Julio Rodriguez, who looked at and took a very stubborn position a couple of weeks ago that the only way to look at the budget is look at all the budget burdens of all the entities that everyone considers moving to Clewiston. And he said Clewiston would be the most expensive place ever. We won't get anybody retiring here. So on his own, together with Molly, they are putting their foot down. But your main consideration that I've heard here is making your little county entity government shine. That's not your job. Your job is to solve the problems of the county. Development office has said, number one, it's education. Number two, it's housing. When you buy housing, the first thing you look at is the overall tax burden. And you're the only leaders in this county. There isn't any, the hospital doesn't lead anything. You guys are the leaders. And that's why what he says is making a lot of sense. And then Superintendent Paletti is handicapped by the choice of incoming teachers he's got. He's always got a problem. And they're going to look first at where they're going to live. And you guys know housing and teaching, and that's our 2 big problems. And that links right to the entire overall burden that you pile on by trying to make your county shine and pay all your bills and just like But you got to look, to me, as the overall county problems and direct all your efforts at attending those, not who's leaking and whether the parking lot is perfect and stuff.
They got the same problem in Collier and Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Patel. Any other members of the public wish to address the board?
The Clewiston sub-office was presided by Kevin McCarthy. $2 million BOCC.
That wasn't going to happen.
I know. Okay, anyway, but he's over at the school board, and 2 months ago, he was given the 2-month task of making an inventory of everything they own, every piece of property and every building and everything, and it took him 2 months, and he practically went crazy. Every detail of every square foot of everything. I was just wondering whether we have an inventory of everything we own, because if you're spending 90 grand on one office, you should be spending money, because we had this after Wilma. After Wilma, the insurance people came in and said, what do you own? We said, we don't have a list. That's the first step, I think.
Now, we had a pretty good list. I took them to every property we had myself.
Okay, I was wondering.
I drove them there, yeah.
No, we have a list of it.
We have a list.
Can I say something?
Absolutely.
Okay, on talking about your feasibility study and everything, on the $65 that we charge on the different court costs and everything, I think we could go back and look at that and probably utilize some of that money for it. That's not in, that's fines.
We did make the,
Fines.
Fines.
we made a formal
Plus,
request to the judges.
Yeah, plus I think that some of that belongs to the board too.
Okay.
I think that Judge Cupp is wanting to get some kind of mental health program going, and he's adamant about it, especially for the drug users and everything, because they have got no help in Henry County. And I told him, Carson, to get a hold of you, that you knew about all the mental health in Henry County. That would be his number one go-to on the board. Hope you didn't mind.
No, I love that idea,
Yeah.
and I agree that we're one episodic event away from being on CNN headline news, and
Yeah.
we are providing no services in that. And thank the Lord that Crossroads is doing what they're doing. Literally a Band-Aid, probably the closest we could have to a Band-Aid on a jugular locally.
But he's thinking that through the court system, they may be able to get grants. And I told him to please reach out, and if you would, Carson, if you could get a hold of the
Yes, ma'am.
judge, because he's talking about court grants that we could get through administration maybe to help with something like that, and maybe that could bleed over into something that would help the county and the jail.
Yeah.
Does
You
he
know.
have any funding that we can use?
That's what he was talking
he's
about,
saying.
maybe getting some funding through the court system,
Okay.
you know,
But
to
is there
help.
any right now in there that we can use or not?
And
That is one of our hot topics for sure. We
Okay.
complain about the situation, but we have to have something to provide the release on it. And one more thing about the millage, the city of LaBelle decided to leave theirs the same again. So we're not the only one in the boats that's looking at that. I don't know what Clewiston did, I don't know if they reduced it or not, but I do know the city of LaBelle left theirs the same again, so.
And there, just so y'all know, also, there is a new mental health provider in county that's doing it was a gentleman who worked for us at one time at the health department. DNA,
Lead DNA
Lead
Therapy
DNA.
was the group. It was
Right.
a counselor who'd been with Henry Glades Mental Health, who's
Right.
affiliated.
right, and so they're doing some outreach, some home visits and things like that. So we're gaining a little bit of traction there and helping, so yeah, everything we can do is good. Yeah. Okay, any other members of the public wish to address the board at this time? Seeing none, any further discussion from the board, or are you ready to bring forth a motion?
I move to make a motion to set the millage at 8.4909 on the trim.
Motion moved by Commissioner Harris, seconded by Commissioner Byrd to make the trim notice millage 8.4909. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of this motion say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Aye.
That motion carries. Okay, thank you very much. Is there anything else we need to go through and do? Any further discussion from the board?
Good discussion.
Very good discussion.
Good discussion.
Thank you. Hearing adjourned.